All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX 039, Season 2, Episode 7, coming at you. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you on a wonderful Wednesday. Yeah, still under construction here as far as going to our new layout, new setup. So bear with me another week or two while we still figure this out. Wonderful stuff here. We want to be on the AfterShoX, Fox Trading in the Foxhole, the scene. SJ gets down. Hit us up, ftinfx at gmail, or give the hotline a call, 541-525-0896. We'd love to hear from you. Or like and subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you either way. Definitely like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. The algorithm definitely needs that help. Okay, so what are we going to do here in episode 39? Well, let's first go to campus. You know, it's April, and so technically the madness has come to an end. However, that may not be the case, as the end of last week, I kind of mentioned this on Fox Trading in a Foxhole 308, check that out if you can, about President Trump announcing an executive order which basically outlines what most of us who've been seeing the madness on campus since the pandemic have been calling for. Going back to how things kind of used to be, sans everybody getting a big bag of cash, but that you have 5 years to play for, you get one free transfer, you should have to sit out. Of course, the culture is obviously pushing back on this and talking about the unfair patriarchy trying to hold folks down. And they're entitled to that opinion, as we are entitled to have some guardrails and some adults in the room, perhaps. I mean, geez. You know, this is interesting because this conversation has definitely opened up the wormhole that is Title IX, which, if you've been following Fox Trading in a Foxhole, that was kind of one of the first things I mentioned in 2020. When you start talking about a model for profit, you got to ask yourself a question. If it's about profit, there ain't no fairness in profit. There never will be. You can sit there and pretend that there is, but that's just not a reality. And we're starting to run against that. Not just women's sports, but all the other sports that do not generate revenue. And that could be wrestling, tumbling, cross country, track and field, gymnastics. Take your pick. I mean, how do they really fit into this model that we're building? And gladly, whether you like the guy or not, somebody's stepping up and trying to bring some order to what is obviously pure chaos and what we're seeing as far as what's happening on college campuses right now. It's just that simple. I don't know how everybody else fits in the narrative. You know, we've seen some lawsuits that don't get any traction, right? Like the women's beach volleyball team here in Eugene for the University of Oregon. You know, how they were getting the short shaft. You know, obviously, I think they got shamed into getting better treatment. But the fact is, when it comes to football, and I've spoken about this, where I think basketball at the U of O has become a stepchild because all the money goes into football. But the fact is, when we're talking about a revenue-based model, the idea of fairness coming into play when we're chasing the bag, ridiculous media rights deals, it just doesn't add up. It never added up. And now it really doesn't. And this idea that we can continue this charade while pushing this, yeah, we're out to make the dollars. We're out to buy the best squad possible. We're out to buy natties. How can anything fair ever come into play? I know that's just how I see it. What was also interesting about the other night, and we'll talk Monday, when Michigan took out Connecticut. Congratulations, Wolverines, winning your second national championship. But it was kind of funny how the race narrative, everybody was talking about the exciting whites and how they're taking over basketball. Notice how when Michigan won that game, as ugly as it was, that conversation died. You haven't heard anything over the last 3 days, which is perfect. Just because, college basketball being an amalgamation, men's especially, an amalgamation of people of all colors, all nationalities, and this idea of the race baiters and hustlers getting a few cheap clicks and engagements, trying to sell this thing, oh, well, the black athlete, they're too coddled, they're all about the money, they don't care. Not necessarily true. I mean, there were so many circumstances involved, like whether it's one and done, or maybe you don't work hard enough. I don't know. But this idea that this is a racial narrative was absolutely stupid, as opposed to giving the coaches who go out there and put the work in and get these kids. Yeah, okay, you're buying them, but you still got to put out the work and convince them to come and buy into your program. And I know that Michigan had a starting five, all folks that came in the transfer portal, which is a great example. But that's just the business model. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with country or origin. If you can ball, you can ball. And the fact that there is money on the table, yeah. I mean, because it was aesthetically, the game was, kind of meh, about what you would expect. Like my good friend that owns a bar here in town said it many years ago. You get into these situations where you're playing at a weird start time, you're playing in unfamiliar gyms. The pressure, even if half these kids are 24 and 25, it's still real. And somebody says, well, they don't get butterflies. Well, sure they do. Especially if you're trying to get another bag. Right? Wow. Okay. Then we got the whole thing with Dawn and Gino. Lady Dawn and Gino. Great conversation. I will give Dawn Staley this. Mad props for actually trying to get in front of the narrative. Of course, in her weird, condescending way, you still come away looking at her like, yeah, okay, whatever, woman, whatever. I mean, Gino, he's not getting it past either, because he was a very petulant brat. Showed why many of us at the know have never liked him. Who is kind of, okay, he's not violent, but he does have that kind of Bobby Knight demeanor. There's always that he's above everybody, and how dare you say anything because I am Gino Ariyama. But Lady Dawn too, and when Lady Dawn has all the race baiters and hustlers in her camp, like, oh yeah, you really showed that, old white man. And I'm like thinking, okay, as silly as it is, this actually was a good storyline for a product that is actually sagging. Ever since Caitlin Clark went to the pros, kind of Angel Reese, but really Caitlin Clark, let's face it. We'll get into that later this week. Or maybe later in the show, we'll see. But ever since then, obviously you have Juju out for the year, who's supposed to be in that little run of her, Caitlin, Juju, Paige Buckers, right? Sabrina Eyes to somewhat, right? The ladies of the court, the true queens of the court. And I gotta say, right? It's just great for UCLA, great for Kerry Close, which I'll have some things to say here later this week about her and her being at her wits' end with all this NIL stuff. Now she's reigning national championship coach. Oh, I'm getting off the tracks here. Let me get it back on. But the product itself, kind of bland. And because Gino and Don, and there's a lot of this going on, whether it's Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson and Stephen A. Smith and Marcellus Wiley and Jason Whitlock and Joy Taylor and on and on and on. All this stuff to build your brand and basically get clicks. And I'm not saying this little incident between Gino and Don was that, but it definitely had that intended effect. Because nobody would have given a rat's ass about this game as far as South Carolina hooking up with UCLA on Sunday if we didn't have that extra spice. Like I said, I'm not saying it's intentional, but this is one of those weird moments where, hey, this actually might have been a good thing for a product that is obviously sagging. Yeah. Okay. Lastly, and speaking of Michigan winning, in UCLA women and Indiana football, it is fair to say the Big Ten are the kings and queens of this new normal of college sports. It's kind of interesting, when you think about the dominance of the SEC last decade, the ACC as far as basketball in previous years, but it is pretty clear that it is the Big Ten's world and we're all living in it. And the fact that Oregon with Phil Knight's money still hasn't got the holy grail, but they're a player in this. And you have to look around, like I said, I think it was last week, when you look at the other West Coast schools like USC, Washington, and UCLA, it's like, what the hell are you doing? And it's obviously your great weather, beautiful women and men. You ain't got nothing on these folks in Bloomington, Ann Arbor, Champaign. Am I lying? No, it is interesting to see. Is this a permanent thing? I do not know. Right? We have always had questions about sustainability in this bitch and how this is going to really work in the long haul. And those are questions we'll try to answer them and give insights as we get more data and more insights with each season that passes as we get to this new normal. And I'm really curious to see if this executive order that's going to go in place, hopefully for this upcoming school year, 26-27, if it actually has teeth and we can actually say, okay, this kind of looks like a program or a product, I should say, we can get behind. I thought it was great about what Doug Gottlieb, when he was making the rounds over the last couple of weeks, I thought he was so spot on when he's talking about the future and the present, where folks you're asking them to reach into the kitty. Because, right, not every school has a Phil Knight or a Tillman Furtada or a Mark Cuban or, deep Silicon Valley pockets. You're asking, donors to get behind this. And with the current chaos, I can't see people. You'd be a sucker to continue to buy into this. You'd be an absolute sucker, right? Given the loyalty and the mobility that these, I don't know, they're not student athletes anymore. They're not quite professional athletes yet, just because of all the whining and empowerment that goes along with it. All right, folks, that's campus. When we come back, we'll spice things up, talk a little basketball, NBA, WNBA. See you in a moment. Okay, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chillin' like a funky cold Medina, whatever that means. Over here, looking off to the side. Classic LA car chase. Had one last night and this morning. If you've lived in LA, you know that's one of the favorite things to watch on the news. Also, you can see I'm sporting LAFC, repping hard. Took the belt to the ass last night of Cruz Azul. Leading 3-0, heading back to Mexico for the return fixture as far as CONCACAF Champions Cup goes. So, we're feeling the badge today. Feeling very colorful. Anyways, we'll talk a little soccer later on in this AfterShoX number 039. Like and subscribe to FTIN FX Media's YouTube channel. We could definitely use the engagement. Need your help out as much as we can. Can't say that enough. Tell your friends too, please. All right. Let's call this segment, This Is What You Want. This is what you are getting. Not necessarily the PIL song, but, we'll just call this the FTIN FX remix. Yeah, this is what you want. This is what you all are getting. Let's start out with a 65 game threshold. Now we're at a situation, with Luka being hurt and SGA's up against it, Joker's up against it, and everybody's all crying, like going, ass clown Stephen A. Smith and others like going, this is ridiculous, this is a travesty. Or maybe he isn't saying it, but a lot of folks are crying. And the basic premise here is you can't have it both ways. You can't bitch about load management, then cry when the league, as toothless as it usually is, actually tries to do something to stop it. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, this is so unfair. They're being oppressed and all this other nonsense. It's like, no. You call me an old head all you want. Robert Parrish, call him an old head all you want. Jordan, Kobe, bless his heart, wherever, if he's looking down on this. But these folks, they played 79 to 82 games. I mean, I'd be here for 2 hours listening to all the knocks and bruises that old Kobe Bean went through. So the idea that, you've got a grade 2 oblique strain and that's going to cause you to miss a couple games, fine. But if you don't get the 65, you don't get the postseason awards. And it should be that way for the All-Star game. Make it punitive. Yeah, it sucks. What have I been saying? What's the recurring theme that I always, or solution, I should say? Sometimes it's got to hurt. It doesn't have to be imperfect. And sometimes, there's going to be a little bloodletting. Of course, when you're talking about, mega millionaires, so you miss out on a freaking trophy. Do you bitches really care about your legacy that much? I really don't think you do anymore. Money has made you, I don't know, maybe less caring about such things? I don't know. Speaking of LeBron, God, what a dilemma he has right now. And JJ Redick and the Laker brass. Obviously, they got their ass kicked twice by Oklahoma City in the past week. In the first game, pretty much breaking them. Obviously losing Luka and Austin Reeves, for, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what you believe. Luka may go to Europe and get some freakazoid treatment that maybe he can come back early. Wouldn't advise that. But if you're the Lakers, JJ Redick and LeBron, what do you do? Obviously, you're going to slip. Maybe that's a good thing. Now that Denver's in the 3 spot, you're going to slip down. You're not going to fall into the play-in, so that's fine. You get a few minutes. But these games that are remaining, you can't have LeBron playing heavy minutes. Even into the first round of the playoff, you still have to manage his minutes. And this is not going to happen. And you can already see this train wreck miles away. groin, something funky's going to happen because he's playing too many minutes. I mean, what is it? He's 41 years old. And yes, he's going to be a warrior. And I know that if he can somehow hold the fort down to allow Luka and Austin to come back and they can make a run, this would definitely enhance his legacy. But the thing, it's such a catch-22. In order for that to happen, you know he's going to have to play too many minutes. And that's not going to be good. So it's definitely a major dilemma as far as the Lakers are concerned. Okay. Another conversation as we get to the finish line for the 25-26 NBA season, the fate of Giannis. And I'm glad to see that there is finally some real talk as far as that subject is concerned when it comes to, as I used to call him, Giannis. Then he became Giannis when he won a title. He's on his way to becoming Giannis again. My thing is, because he has slipped and the NBA is sort of more pivoting to, somebody bigs that like Wemby are inside outside. Is it possible that a team is going to get a bargain, perhaps, that maybe he doesn't command a king's ransom or a queen's ransom to get him, and now all of a sudden, other teams out in the mix. Now, clearly it's going to depend on where he wants to play next, but I'm starting to think that this might, a dark horse may emerge as far as where he lands next. Because you got to think they have to blow this whole thing out. Man, I was listening to Fearless this morning, and the Korean Cosell and Dre Baldwin. They were had a lot of good stuff going on this week. They were talking about Doc Rivers, that Glenn Doc Rivers, and mentioning how 2008 was really a long time ago. And when you stop and think about it, that was really more about Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce pulling some shenanigans that willed the Celtics to beat the Lakers in that particular championship. Ever since then, all Doc has done is blown a lot of 3-1 leads. Kind of shown that he's not a great coach. It was a horrible mistake getting rid of the guy when you were kind of rolling a few years ago. I can't think of his name. Brain cells, too many adult bevs along the way, I suppose. Just part of the scenery. But it's not part of the scenery is this mess. And I'm just thinking, if you are the Bucks, enjoy that championship you had, like the one you won with Kareem way back in the day. It may be that long again. And just say, hey, we sold our souls to get that championship. Now we just got to blow the whole thing up. I mean, blow up the facility, everything, and just start from scratch. That's what I think. Let me ask this one real quick. So Mike Malone, who won a championship with the Denver Nuggets, recent enough, and already had another career in broadcasting, apparently is going to take over the reins in Chapel Hill. And we got to ask ourselves, is this a good move by the Tar Heels on the heels of reaching into the pros and getting a true legend in Bill Belichick? I don't know. I've heard some compelling arguments in terms of, does Malone really understand what's going on at the college level? And I'm like British Petroleum on that. The college level, the NBA level, what's different? They're getting paid. They load manage. He'll be fine as long as he has a competent team that can go out there and cut the deals to get him players. This actually might work. In fact, I'm more optimistic of this working than anything Belichick might be doing. It's an interesting move from a school that really looks like they're kind of desperate right now. Fair to say? Yeah. I didn't know why the closet was open for. And why I felt the need to close it then. But yeah, I like that move. I do. Hold on a second. Let me look here. Where are we at? Okay. We are cold chilling. I do like this move. I didn't at first, but I kind of talked myself into it. You're not going for one of the good old boys. Roy Williams isn't walking back through the door, and Dean Smith isn't coming down from the heavens to save you. So, in this particular case, where it is easier to put together a basketball squad like in Michigan, I'm thinking, yeah, why not? And in 2 years of his bullshit, you kick him to the curb. It is a new normal, right? Okay. I'll leave you with this one. How about Me Bounds? Yeah, Me Bounds. Angel, Angel from Baton Rouge. Angel Reese getting traded from Chicago to the Atlanta Dream, blowing the internet up. All the simps and haters having a moment to themselves. And for me, I talk about the W because I talk about anything that's newsworthy. And as unlikable as the queens of the court can be at times, they do make for compelling sports talk and conversation and hot takes and salty takes. And Angel Reese getting moved to Atlanta. Oh man, the internet just could not help themselves. Pennies from heaven once again, as far as folks being able to create content and generate clicks and conversations. It is interesting, and I think the league has something to do with this. I mean, they are so desperate to have a villain to Caitlin Clark. Now that they have kind of quietly had to acknowledge, hey, this is the Ivory Queen's island. We're all lucky to be on it and getting a bag. But somehow there has to be this need to keep Angel Reese relevant. My question is, and as many others have, is her shitbird attitude gonna ruin this too? I mean, when you got to the point where you had folks like Cardosa and others that just didn't want to have anything to do with her. She quit on her team. Claimed her back was hurting, and she's on a damn plane twerking off to go to some friggin' party. Right? She thinks she's the story. Well, I'm part of the narrative too. You are, but you ain't really. I mean, I don't know. You're in a situation where you get a couple of bigs down there with BG and the other lady. Maybe you can actually develop a shot in 10 feet and be consistent at it. And we might revisit this. But as long as you're me bounds, yeah, it's, for an unlikable league, they're going to create some interesting storylines this year. You just see this coming, and that's why we love it, because it gives us stuff to talk about. All right, folks, when we come back, we'll switch it over, talk a little NFL, see what we got there. Be back momentarily. All right, then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. See, we got new gear we're playing with, and yeah, the new setup is going to be pretty dope. It's been a few years in the making, and by hook or crook, kind of making it happen. So bear with us. We're about to step up our production value and do a few more slick and cool things. And hopefully, the quality of the overall production. Or not. But yeah, it's fun times in the Foxhole right now. So definitely, if you all should come on, Love to like get some more folks back on. I'm going to cycle through some folks that you've seen before as far as getting the scene back together. And just did an episode with SJ as far as SJ Gets Down. So some new content there, and we're in the process of getting her platform up on video too. So that's going to be fun because it's always a blast to record with her. So yeah. Anyhow, fun times ahead, folks. Stay tuned. Okay, where are we going now? Let's talk about April, because we are now 8 days in. Shh, time flies. Oh, my God. But April is kind of you get done with March Madness. You know, baseball, while it starts in March or whatever the hell it does, it doesn't feel the same like it used to. Like, it's like, oh, Final Four, then you have opening day. But April has really become the war room month. Yes, the NBA playoffs get going towards the end of the month, but it's really about the draft. And rejoice, because it is the season of the armchair GMs and would-be owners. Ta-da-da-da-dum. It is draft season for better or worse. And, you know, you've heard me rant on this now, what is this, year 6? That this is one of the more annoying times of the year. Is it not? When you hear people talking to you about value. Like you got skin in the game. Even if your ass is a season ticket holder. Pardon my language. No, but it's fun. I mean, you know, as I've always said, I can't crib on these people. You know what? If it makes you happy to think that you've got skin in the game and you're a GM and you know more than the folks that get paid, you know I'm a big Commanders fan. And one of the things about our fan base is why it's one of the more annoying in the league. And wait till you see a week from today when they unveil the uniforms, you'll get a taste of what I'm talking about. But that said, you know, hearing these folks, and mind you, under Dan Snyder, there were a lot of more swings and misses than actually, you know, making contact as far as getting it right in the draft. And so everybody's an expert, and you should, you know, the screaming and yelling, even to the point, I think I talked about this last year or earlier in the year, when they actually rose up and won a couple of games at the end because they like to compete, and people screaming, "Oh my God, we could have had number 5." And I know the whole thing with Fernando Mendoza skipping out on draft day to be with his mom. Some people just think he doesn't want to have a moment where he's one of those guys sitting in the green room, you know, having his Aaron Rodgers moment. I mean, I'm going to give the kid credit that his mom has MS. If we're not going to crumb on Goldilocks for not being there, because I guess he had a family issue as well, Trevor Lawrence. Whatever. It isn't that big of a deal. Sure, it's nice for the NFL to showcase its number 1. But hey, maybe, and just maybe, the Raiders aren't being the silver and black, and are going to try to be the silver and black and trade his ass for assets. You got Kirk Cousins in there as a bridge quarterback. You don't have to take a risk on this kid. I know. So we got TB12 there, and I know some people wanted to diminish his influence in that building, but I'm starting to think he does, because what the fuck does Mark Davis know? We've seen that. Yeah, I just wonder, because I've heard this kid be called the P word and a bunch of other things for not doing this, and that he's soft, because, he has a good message. I mean, it's kind of like Tebow 2.0. Maybe, it is just a sappy, right? It is Tebow 2.0. Maybe Tebow 2.0 has more skills than Tebow 1.0 did, as far as him being able to stay in the league. But, killing this kid over not showing up to the draft. Come on, folks. We got better things to do is all I'm saying. Boy, look at Jason Kelsey over there just hamming it up, being part of the par 3 coverage of the Masters, because it is Masters. We just had Welcome to the Masters, and now we're getting up for the par 3 contest. Exciting stuff. All the dudes and their families dressed up as the white caddies. All these hotties, cute kids. It's a beautiful thing. I like it. Okay, I get off the tracks for a second. Let me hop back on it. Let me get back on the gridiron. It is war month, you know. Now, one of these things I don't understand. I don't know if this is the culture. This is the weird obsession we have with Juckocracy. I'm not sure. But, you know, Lamar and Orlovsky, you know, the back and forth. I mean, Lamar's showing up to off-season workouts. And everybody giving him flowers. And I'm sitting there like, British Petroleum. Isn't that your job? Especially when you don't have one of these? When you're not sporting one of these? Wait a minute here. I need to go reach over and grab a prop. I just want to talk some trash. See, this is what I like about going wireless now for some of these things. You can actually go grab a prop. But yeah, one of these. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, why are we praising this guy for doing something he should have been doing all along? And especially in I forget where we're at with him. All I know is it's been long enough. It's like year 7, 8, whatever it is. And no ring for Chew. So, if it were me, and I know Josh Allen him and Haley just had a baby. Congratulations. But some work on that big farm you are always talking about out where I grew up. All that aside, both of your asses should be off-season workouts, film study, working with gurus. I love seeing Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin down in L.A. working out. Exactly. That's what you should be doing if it's about winning. Yeah? I mean, shit. This is the problem I have with this era. That we applaud folks for putting in the work when that's what the fuck they should be doing. Pardon my language. Boy, I know we're salty today. But we're just fun. Hey, can I tell you, LAFC's rolling. I get to see PSG here in about 50 minutes squaring off with Liverpool. Yeah, are you kidding me? Okay, what else do we have here? Okay, so the Buffalo Sabres NHL make the playoffs. So that means, right now, the Jets at 14 years currently hold the longest playoff drought. We gotta ask, when it comes to Woody's Ship of Fools, how low is it gonna go? And that's a great series of questions I don't know if I have the answer for. Especially when you've got a coach who was a cornerback, but yet in his first year, his secondary did the impossible and recorded 0 interceptions, who just said, I don't know, last week, 10 days ago, that Gino is going to lead them to the promised land when currently they have the longest playoff drought. Now, I will tell you this. If Aaron Glenn, Gino, and Woody Johnson and the Ship of Fools prove me wrong, I will come here. I'll do something silly to okay, I was wrong about that. I will do something silly to match the kind of tickets I think I am holding on to right now when it comes to this is delusion. This is being delusional at its finest. And I think, wow, you guys have the longest run. And as I said, being a Commanders, Redskins football team fan, and enduring some pretty miserable football in the Dan Snyder era, even a little bit the Josh Harris era last season, but the playoffs every now and then. You go a season and a half, which means, not a season and a half, a decade and a half, excuse me. which means you've had access to bettering your team, and you haven't. Which leads me back to Woody Johnson and the Ship of Fools. I know. And to think they were actually good with Mark Sanchez. Boy, the Jets. Well, now we know why Joe Namath has been, such a happy drunk all this time. Because if he thought about his team that he so loves, yeah, he'd probably be an angry drunk. Okay. Where are we going here? Let's close this out here. Rashee Rice. Interesting young man for the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, apparently he got a clean bill from the league office as far as his shenanigans, or as Coach JB of the Coach JB and Big Smitty show likes to say, shitbird. So this is why, like in Foxtrotting in a Foxhole, I try to, when I'm handing out the TMC awards, when it comes to people who are involved in, violent, DV, sexual misconduct, we'll always try to hold out until we know for sure. Because it just seems like there's a lot that just doesn't jibe in this story. Now, I don't trust the league so much, but I have a feeling if there was some stink, they would have no choice to come down hard on this guy. But, when it comes to he said, she said, ouch, he said, she said, and we're talking like bags of cash, is there going to be a lot of veracity there? I mean, it's just another one of these cautionary tales in this era where there is a lot of bags of cash going around if you won the genetic lottery and you get to play professional sports pretty much anywhere on this globe right now. And so, yeah. So, I mean, good for him. Hopefully he can keep his, I don't know, nose out of the dirt. Stay out of the dirt, period. I mean, that may be asking a lot for these guys making all that money and all them fine-ass women swooning at them. I mean, look at Rabel and Diana Rossini. I mean, right? I'm still unpacking that one. We'll talk about that for sure. In episode, what is that going to be? I think 309 coming up here. That should be Friday. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this one because I don't believe the league, even going back to the whole Ray Rice thing, has really adequately addressed the domestic violence and sexual violence problem that's been running rampant probably since Bronco Nagurski played for the Canton Bulldogs way back in the friggin' day. And as we've said before, when it comes to, the Teflon coating the NFL has, I mean, it's the one league. I mean, homie just put out a book, right? Colin Kaepernick. He was supposed to take the NFL down. Dr. Adamadawalu with the CTE, supposed to take the NFL down. Bad Bunny with his non-English, fluid, whatever, supposed to take the NFL down. I don't know. We can't wait for the draft. When these guys F up, we get cranky, but if they somehow weasel out of it, we're happy and drinking our punch when they get to score touchdowns for our favorite team. All right, folks. We definitely have the salt shaker out. So when we come back, we will lay down some parting shots and probable salty takes. See you momentarily. All right, then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling. Still playing with the microphone. Oh, love the handheld stuff. Yeah, it's... We're having a lot of fun. RCV, which I'll clue in on that here soon. And EV10, yeah, just some of the things that have been introduced to the fox trotting and the foxhole. AfterShoX the scene, SJ gets down workflow. Okay, that was a mouthful. Oh, all right. I know this is going to be tough. I'm going to have to figure out how to watch a little bit of the par 3 contest in PSG tackling. Oh man, this is going to be huge. So huge, but yeah. Anyway, let's do some parting shots, probable salty takes. Talking about this last week on episode 309 of FTI and FX. And the media rights deal that's coming up for the NFL, they're talking $16 billion a year. So let's see here. And I'm not sure how many years this runs for, but we know that the NBA's was roughly about 80. And that's like, I think 12 years. So I'm just sitting here just thinking, good grief, in 4 or 5 years, and it's probably going to go up. I'm like thinking, have we lost our minds? I mean, going back to what I was saying last segment about someone like, Rashee Rice, which, like I said, clean bill of health, but there are many other shitbirds who are doing things like the guy for the Falcons who committed the felonies, and I haven't had time to unpack it yet, but it seems like he's in deep doo-doo. That when you've got all this stuff going on, right? Coach cheating on his wife apparently with Deanna Rossini, and you can still command a $16 billion a year media rights deal where half the streaming platforms suck and don't work on smart TVs. Don't even get me started with ESPN Unlimited as far as that bull-bajive is concerned. Wow. I know, have we lost our friggin' minds? Is what we have to ask ourselves when it comes to that. $16 billion. The NFL. And I've had people telling me, oh, I don't know if football's going to, be popular with the next generation. I'm like, yeah, in the NFL. And this is about 7 or 8 years since my buddy told me this. A friend of the show he's been on. He's got kids who are in his 20s, and I'm not dogging him for saying it. But I was not at the time. I'm like, as long as kids are going to the colleges where college football, and I didn't even see college football getting as big as it is now, right? I didn't even see that happening when I said this, when we were having this, this conversation about the future. And yeah, it's just when I think about the NFL, which I don't know, it's lost a little bit of its luster in the last, decade and a half or so, but it's still crack. I mean, you know me, I'm an NFL junkie to the very end, even if it is schmaltzy and, kind of lost its way and so many things. But I could be here for hours and hours as far as taking pop shots at the NFL. Because in the meanwhile, Rodgers getting his $80 million check. It's like saying, yeah, even with all the shit you say, kid, $16 billion. That ain't cab fare. Okay. Then moving on. Well, the Dodgers and Yankees off to very hot starts. So is this, as the talking heads used to do, same as it ever was? Or is this really not being such a good thing in the 2020s? Because, the Yankees and the Dodgers, we know how many times they've met in the World Series. We know that it's an integral part of the lore of baseball. In fact, as they like to say, you can't tell the story of MLB without telling the side story of the war between the Dodgers and Yankees. So, but on the other hand, it does sit there and make me wonder. And I know that there's a lot of buzz. I guess the Pirates have inked Connor Griffin to a big deal. The future with Skynes. But do these teams really have a chance? And how long will it be before guys like that end up donning Dodger blue or the pinstripes? Or possibly, the amalgamation of Dodger giant colors that the Mets are. I don't know if this is even a salty take. I'm just kind of curious. It's like, I'm a traditionalist, so sure, I love, when the Yankees and Dodgers are in the mix. But I don't know if now it's a good thing. I know it was great back in 1977, 1978. It was even cool. I don't know if it was that cool a couple of years ago like it was then. And even 81 in that strike year, when the Dodgers actually beat them. Because other than like 55, 81, and what? 24, Dodgers haven't had a lot of luck when it comes to playing the Yankees in the game, where you get one of these. Yeah. We're having too much fun right now. Thank you for putting up with us. And thank you for being part of the FTI NFX experience. You all need to come on and chat. We'll just have a good old time. But yeah, I'm not so sure. It is what it is, especially without a salary cap and a way to truly level things. But there's a lot of money out there, and I'm curious to see if the Pirates, with their historically cheap ownership, now that they've got some talent, can they make a noise and be somebody you don't want to play in the short series? Time will tell, right? Okay. Let's try this one on for size as far as parting shots or maybe salty takes. The sinking of the Union. What am I talking about? The sinking of the Union. Well, we aren't talking about gas prices going through the roof and going to the grocery store and feeling like you have to be like Chiefsaholic and pull up a couple of criminal mastermind acts. We're talking about the Philadelphia Union. That team that won the Supporters Shield in MLS last year. My question is, how do you go from Supporters Shield winners to Stone Cold the Outhouse? What are we, 6 or 7 match days in the 2026 season? And they failed to register a point. They've lost every fucking game. And this is a team that was the Supporters Shield winners. Then I think, wait a minute, they just told the Galaxy, let me hold your beer. Because the Galaxy really set the template. Because what did the Galaxy do? They went from winning the MLS Cup, which is a lot better than the Supporters Shield, in my opinion, and people who were saying, to a complete dumpster fire last year. But in the Galaxy's defense, they lost RP, and we don't even know when RP is going to be back and some other calamities. I'm looking over at Philly and going, I should have said, this is what you wanted. This is what you ain't getting right now. And it's absolutely, it's kind of hilarious and alarming to see where you can go from being elite to absolute crap. The great thing for Philadelphia is we're still in April. So a lot could happen, but gee whiz, somebody better start balling. Kind of cool to see the youngster who came up at 14 now that he's 16. Dude's a total baller. What's his name? Sullivan? His brother plays with them too. But glad you're getting paid because otherwise it'd just be a rough ride. Okay. Timer. So I'm watching the par 3, and I said there's just so much cute and hotness going on with the caddies, the kids, and obviously the wives. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. One of the reasons I watch, I'm just like, oh, you do look good in that white onesie. Mm-hmm. But the kids are so cute too. Look at Rom's kids, like I'm seeing right now here. It's always a wonderful thing. Why I talk about this is, okay, obviously with the trials and tribulations of a one Eldrick Tiger Woods over the past month, and clearly he is not at the Augusta National Golf Course this week, had the winner's dinner last night. Rory serving up the tasty eats. Yeah, man. I think no Tiger in Augusta, and somehow in 2026, we're a lot better off that he is hopefully getting better somewhere. And not, with a martini and a handful of perks. Ooh, that was mean. But yet, I do feel this, he's going to come up in the conversation. But if he had been here, it would have been this weird focus on him, which he didn't need, and golf fans and Augusta National didn't need. So I am glad that we don't have Tiger. And I think this is one of the few times I can say that, because even broken back Tiger has always been that, well, he could do what he did in 2019. But no, we're only going to have to have a few awkward moments over the next couple of days. And if you are a fan of golf, or even a casual that will tune into the Masters because everybody else is doing it, you'll be thankful for that. Okay, where should we end this with? Oh, man, I've talked about this a couple of times already, and, I don't like picking on the young generation. I ain't going to be one of these folks. I crop on all generations, okay? I'm a boomer, and we're as fucked up as fucking anybody. But, this whole Iceman controversy with George Gervin and Caleb Williams, it just says so much about the disconnect from the past to the present. And, one of the interesting things that people have brought up about this is everybody has a fucking team, okay? If you're getting the big bags of cash and you've got a brand, unlike, us down here at FTI and FX, the one-man crew trying to So the idea that nobody knows, not to mention Chuck Liddell and others who have that moniker. Oh, I didn't know this. And I know why people call Caleb G-Dub. I'll just leave it at that. Because that little mealy mouth explanation that my teammates gave it to me, and just like, in a world where we've got information at our fingertips, unlike back in my day when you actually had to fucking know something. Pardon my language. But yeah, I'm just not buying this nonsense. And because people just say, hey, I've got my truth. Yeah, I probably knew that was really true, but my truth says, and I just think, okay, yeah. We know that George Gervin has a certain amount of coolness, and Chuck Liddell obviously has a great deal of toughness and badassness. And I sit there and think, and you never made the connection? We won't even get into, the guy, what's his name, Kulinitsky, the real Iceman, the guy that's got all the 187s to his credit. Shouldn't be making a lot of that, but I am. And I'm thinking, you just all of a sudden like, oh yeah, man, I'm the Iceman, and it's cool, man. I'm the Iceman with my painted fingernails. Which, by the way, you want to paint your fingernails? I don't give a shit. I ain't going there like other people have. If you can make the kind of throws you've made in the fourth quarter of some of these games out the stretch, you could be wearing a thong if you're a quarterback of my team and making those kind of throws. Okay, that's how I am about that. Not necessarily somebody I would pick for my leader if I was in the draft room, but like I was saying in the last segment, I ain't one of these would-be owners or armchair GMs. I'm just a fan. Oh, but yeah, the never-ending disconnect from us. And I don't expect people to know what weirdos like I know. But when it comes to the Iceman, and you just thinking that's so cool, and then trying to, just slump it off, I understand why people come at you and probably won't like you as we move forward. Okay. As always, like and subscribe and tell your friends. as far as FTI and why do I always mess it up? FTI and FX Media's YouTube channel. Catch Foxtrot in a Foxhole on Spotify or YouTube. Need to get better about getting those episodes up on YouTube as far as that goes. But that'll be coming out probably Friday. Keep an eye out for a new episode of SJ Gets Down when she gets to editing that and all that good stuff. In the meanwhile, this weekend, enjoy the Masters. It's going to be fun. If you're like me, working from home, enjoy UCL. You know, it was big stuff yesterday, big stuff today. So, yeah, it's a great week in sports. Great weather here on the West Coast. Take advantage of it. Enjoy the adult bevs, the good eats, the good company especially. Be safe. Definitely stay sane. Avoid the bracelets whenever you can. Always do it with a smile on your face, and we will see you very soon. Peace out, y'all.